We are recording. Damn. All right. Welcome to episode 2 of Remembering Me, the Soul Healing Podcast. You know, it's just the second episode, so I'm still getting used to
You
it.
got to get it together.
Yeah, so welcome to episode 2,
Peace.
Me, a
Peace.
Soul Healing Podcast. I am Candace Love.
I'm Brick City Buddha, also known as Docs.
Yes, and so today
Her husband.
yes, his wife.
Yeah, you better.
So today we have a really beautiful topic to speak about, but first we want to just speak about like how our time has been since we have posted the podcast, uploaded the podcast,
Right.
and how the feedback has been
Right.
in that process.
And what led up to it. Before we even do that, being that we kind of settled our energy before we started, we won't go as long as we just did, but people may be having a rough day. We've been getting a lot of feedback on how calming the first episode was. So let's just take a group breath wherever you at. My count is down from 3. We're going to breathe in fully through the nostrils, pull it all the way up to the top of the head, hold it for a few seconds, and then breathe it all the way out. Okay, eyes closed if you can. If you're driving, just do your thing in 3, 2. Big, smooth, long breath in through the nose. Pull it from feet to the top of the head. Hold it. Feel this out breath, pulling all the stress of the day to the center, ready and excited to be released. And in 3, 2, let it all out. Okay, you ready?
All right.
Hopefully that helped.
Yes.
Okay, so first we got to talk a little bit about the lead up to even releasing it. And keep in mind, this is something we've been talking about for a year and change.
Yeah.
People have been suggesting, asking, low-key, some people are like, yo, we beg you, please make a podcast.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with how saturated the podcast industry is right now. And everybody has a voice. Everybody should be able to tell their story. We don't knock anybody. But there is like a consistent theme, especially in people of color's podcast, black and brown people's podcast. Our podcast is for everybody. We've been getting love from all around the world, places where it's probably not a lot of us, but that's the intention. We all about love at the end of the day. But specifically for our community, there's a heavy intention about sexual topics from a very third dimensional approach. There's a lot of angst and dissension. Of course, we know, God rest his soul, but Kevin Samuels, it's a lot of that type of energy. So people have kind of been seeing how we flex and want us to kind of balance out this industry. So it's been a year and a half in the making. We actually planned, we had shot our first episode a month and change ago at this point.
Yeah.
And you're doing a new podcast, which has potential to grow how it's already been growing. Most people shoot that's going out the next day.
Right. Exactly.
Right. But
yeah.
we are very specific as far as when we do something, we got to be in the right frequency. So when we shot the episode, we like, okay, Christmas Eve is going to be a great day. Christmas Eve comes, she look at me, I look at her, it's too much going on. My son here is family. Nope, we're not doing it Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, New Year's Day, everybody gonna be chilling, hungover. New Year's Day comes, I look at her, she look at me, nope, not yet. And then we planned on dropping it last Wednesday. And for whatever reason, she was gonna push through. I was hugging her, I looked at her, I'm like, we still releasing today? She's like, we can. And I'm like, do you feel like releasing today? I can do it. No. Do you feel like releasing today? No, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
And mind you, a podcast can be a lucrative thing. It can boost our businesses. But at the end of the day, it's about how our hearts feel and how God is leading us.
Absolutely.
And I say all that to say that the reason we had to wait, we realized the day before we actually released the podcast, we had a moment of intentional, impromptu, spontaneous intimacy that after we had it, and we'll get into a little bit more of that, we realized, well, I was led to say, you know what? She had went downstairs already. I'm like, yo, let's film a excerpt of that so people could at least have the technique. Still not understanding that was going to be the piece of promo we needed to really launch the podcast.
Right.
And, the rest is history at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And so, anytime I personally put my energy into something, it doesn't always mean that just because I put my energy into it and I created it right then, that it's meant for me to put it out right then. Even with my skincare line, it took me a year or 2 years to put my skincare line out. But when I do put out my creations, my energy has to be in alignment. And so I know that how I feel is how everything else is going to respond. All of the energy surrounding the project is going to respond. So that day where, after we recorded our impromptu intimacy session, and we're going to get into that because the intimacy session was pretty big.
Right.
But even before, after that happened, that next day, that Monday, I knew, we were about to, put the podcast out. That was the plan.
Right.
And my goal is to always feel the way that I want the project to do. So I woke up at 6. I went to the gym. I did the sauna. I put on makeup when I got home, all oiled up and
Got
everything.
dressed.
Yeah, my
I'm like, oh,
husband
that's what we doing? I guess
yeah.
I need to get dressed.
And I'm like, yeah, it's release day. And so all of that energy from the day before where you initiated our impromptu intimacy session, connecting our energies in that way.
Right.
And normally we always connect our energy, but we just weren't clear of what our energy was about to produce.
Right.
And then the next morning, me going to the gym, making sure the energy that I have to cultivate is poured into the project and how far it goes as
Right.
far as, the manifestation aspect. And we put that podcast out and it went viral within a few hours, a couple of hours.
Right. And most people, when they're about to launch anything, they got their marketing schemes. They doing the Facebook boosts and the Instagram boosts, and of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But at this point, we've been so trustworthy, I guess, of how God moves us,
Yeah.
that a lot of times it's based on intuition. Like I said to you the other day, we're not really in business, even though people will look at what we do, our one-on-one services, retreats, events. Technically, this is business.
Right.
But business, when you break that word apart, is about busyness. And a lot of, a lot of our most lucrative endeavors come from stillness, from slowing down, from not doing too much, from letting go of ambition. We're not doing any of this stuff to become anything. We are already at peace with what we naturally are. And a lot of times those intentions to become a great podcaster, to become a great meditation teacher, or whatever it is you're trying to do, that energy will put so much pressure on you that you end up rushing. And had we not had those 3 or 4 moments where it's like, nah, not yet. We know what this could be, but we're not rushing. This is not about ambition. We would not have had that moment to be able to capture it, to be led the whole way. And still the next day I'm like, okay, so this is what we're using for the promo. You're like, yeah. Because we was going to just clip up a piece of the first episode. But God had better plans. And like you said, we put it up, and just that image is still echoing into the global community at this point and driving people to the podcast. So I think it's just a beautiful example of, when you really let God lead, when you really let you, and if you don't believe in God, I know we got all different types of people. There's still an inner voice within you. There's still a sixth sense that's leading you to the left or to the right, or repelling you from a person or telling you to go towards them. The more you purify that relationship with that inner voice, you'll always have your quote unquote marketing scheme, and it will come from within you, not what somebody else did.
Absolutely. And that requires you to give yourself permission to actually listen and have a relationship with your intuition. And so if you are guided by anxiety may have you post something at a time where your spirit is like, I didn't ask you to move.
Right.
I didn't tell you to move. Or where God is like, I didn't tell you to do that. And so the consequences will be whatever your project is that you're putting out, it not getting the type of attention that you wanted it to get because you weren't in alignment with the perfect time to post, which is when your spirit, God, and your intuition tell you, okay, now it's time.
Right.
And that also means that you may have to wait. It may mean that, the time where you like, yeah, I'm gonna mess them up with this one,
We all have been there.
I'm gonna mess them up with this one. And God, your spirit, your intuition is like,
Nope.
next year, right? 5 weeks from now. And you have to be so patient and diligent and trusting that your soul is guiding you exactly how it's supposed to do. If it's not resonating with your spirit, give yourself permission to listen to that. And when you do that, when you have that deep relationship with your spirit, your intuition, and your higher power, it's not necessary to rely on marketing strategies.
Right.
It's not necessary to rely on Instagram ads, because your spirit told you put it out right now, it's going to work.
What's your favorite quote? Well, one of your most famous quotes. I am the algorithm.
I am the algorithm.
Right.
Yeah. And, Instagram has, I can get into that for a very long time. We will do a
Facts.
podcast over Instagram and, the psychological makeup of why Instagram works so well. But when you really embody the fact that you are the algorithm, the reason Instagram works so perfectly is because it is an AI that directly reflects you. It manifests what you like and what you desire and what you look up. So if you just embody the notion that you are the algorithm, you won't need to rely on the marketing strategies of, is everybody up by 11
Exactly.
a.m.? Should I post it by 1 p.m.?
Exactly.
You post it when your soul tells you to post.
Right.
And that is the feedback that is going to be necessary to align with your purpose.
Right. And of course, no shade to anybody. Everybody got their own avenue of how to do things, but y'all have never seen us post a TikTok dance. You know what I mean? y'all saw I think we've at this point had 2 viral videos of our own intimacy, but again, those were real, natural, spontaneous moments. So all the things that the algorithm says you need to do as a couple to blow up, we haven't done none of that. Sometimes it's days or weeks at a time where we don't feel compelled to even engage in social media. The algorithms tell you got to post 3-4 times a day to keep your audience. And we do things our own way. We go at our own pace, and it continues to work in the way it's supposed to work for us.
Right.
The last thing I say about this before we segue into our topic for today, and this is something that you helped me with a lot. A lot of my new audience doesn't realize I'm also an artist. We both artists, right? At some point, we're going to make some music for y'all. We promise, right? But when she first met me, I was very much more so active in my music career. Still doing all the stuff I'm doing now, but that was still blossoming. So I would release a project, I would release a song, whatever it was, and she would encourage me more than I even thought myself to celebrate. She's like, "Oh, baby, I saw you put out a new song. What you doing for the day?" And it's like, what I'm doing, I'm just putting out the song. I didn't even think to celebrate myself. So you've kind of worked that into my spirit to celebrate the small victories, even though no victory is small. But we had already made plans. Once you was like, "All right, let's get dressed," that put me in the framework to say, "All right, well, we're gonna celebrate after that." You're like, "Yeah, let's do something."
Yeah.
And then I started doing my due diligence. It's MLK Day. It's not much I could find, but we ended up going to the skating rink, something that we love to do. And this is before it went viral. So we didn't care, and that's the thing, detachment from result.
Yes.
A lot of people do things with this idea of what it's going to do, the outcome, the desired result. At this point, we have no attachment to result. I've done events with a couple hundreds of people show up. I've done events with nobody show up. I'm not bound to either one because I understand if it's a time where I get 0 people to show up to an event, that's not where my abundance is supposed to come. Right. And I'm still supposed to hold space and still plant that seed that may blossom 3 months down the line. But at this point, we are so disconnected from result that our plan to celebrate wasn't based on we're going to go viral in 5 hours. But that energy also opens you up to the algorithm of the universe. The universe is like, all right, you already in gratitude for just the action of what we compelled you to do. We're going to even open up the gateways of abundance even more. So make sure you guys are celebrating yourself no matter what the outcome, the result, or the amount of people that pay attention to what you do is. If it's important to you, celebrate it.
Absolutely. Yep. And the main part to take away from that as well is letting go of the expectation to outcomes,
Right.
because we just put it out and we went on about our business.
Right.
We went on to enjoy our day.
Right.
And when you have the freedom to let go of expectations to outcomes, let go of control, which is what that really means. When you have the capacity to do that, you can explore the adventure of your creation and allow it to have its freedom to do what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely. So I think that's a good segue at this point to go
Yeah.
into our topic. So, of course, we post a lot about our relationship. And we have been able to say for 2 years now and change, we never had an argument.
We had our first argument, y'all.
She couldn't wait to say that.
We had our first argument. And low key, I was like, dang, we official now.
Yeah, yeah. And we've had disagreements, we've had discrepancies, and still, even this argument,
Right.
mind you, my son was downstairs asleep. So it wasn't to the point where my son waking up and the animals is going crazy. It was still a deep level of respect. But this is probably the most that we have delved into, I guess, our shadow selves in the midst of the relationship.
Absolutely.
So we wanted to kind of talk about that and what we learned from that. Of course, we've talked about the moments in the past where we have had discrepancies. We keep in mind not to raise our voice and things of this nature. We still wasn't yelling, but voices did get raised. I was saying certain things and behaving in certain ways she ain't never seen. That low-key kind of turned her on. We'll get to that in a second, but we do want to be as transparent, use our superpower as much as we can.
Yeah.
We're not here to preach to y'all. We're not here to talk down to y'all or tell y'all what to do. We just give you what we go through, and hopefully it can inspire somebody else to possibly incorporate something into their life that can benefit them. So
Yeah.
our first argument, you got to spark it this time. I always got to spark it.
But I can do that. So, okay, yeah, we had our first argument. And just to give a backstory of what it was about, you know, we speak from transparency, so it is what it is. My husband's son was in town for the first time. And so there was a lot of transition that was happening in the midst of him being here, specifically with his son and my German Shepherd, Cleo.
Right.
And so Cleo is just like, oh my gosh, who is this new precious little boy that's in the house? And his son is like, hold on, you big. Right? You big. Don't run up on me like that. And Cleo's like, but wait, I'm just trying to be your friend. And so, you know, we had to figure out a balance of how to introduce them, and not even a balance. We had to figure out what is the proper way to introduce them. I had to call my trainer. I'm on the phone with him almost in tears. I'm like, man, listen, I don't need you to tell me nothing over the phone. I will pay you to come out here. Okay. And so he was going to make a house visit, but he just gave us a lot of tips on what we can do to integrate them to have a healthy relationship. And so that was a lot of energy in the house because of that, because we want his son to have a healthy quality of life while he's here, to be able to have a great time, to feel free to walk around. And we also don't want to keep yelling at Cleo for something that she's not doing wrong.
It's our space too.
Right. So we had to really find the balance, but also work through a lot of the energy that was in the house, which was a lot of tense energy. So we started working our way through that. But one thing about my husband is he is very attentive and he's very present with no matter who he's with. So there's no difference between when he's with his son or when he's having a conversation with a stranger. He is 1000% present. Whereas me, the first moment you tell me what your name is, I done already forgot. So, you know, there is it's a difference. And so I've had to always hold space for the fact that he's 1000% present in those conversations. And so as his son is here transitioning, what did I call it? What was the name I gave it? I said it was Daddy. What did I call it?
It wasn't Glaze, Daddy Trance.
Daddy Trance. Yeah. So so when his son is here, he's in go mode. And normally he's not in go mode like that. And so it's like, wake up. And you know, with a child, you are required to show up in different ways.
Yeah, he's 4 years old.
Yeah, so it's like wake up when he wakes up, go straight to cooking, go straight to school, go straight to, you know, all of these different things. And so what I know is in relationships, when children are introduced, whether it's the mother having or, you know, the wife or the girlfriend having a child, either way, when children are introduced to the relationship, the dynamic of the relationship changes, which is just a natural thing. And everybody's going to have to figure out a way to adapt. However, as you figure out a way to adapt, it's necessary to figure out a healthy way to adapt. So those changes don't produce a negative outcome on your relationship as well. All relationships still need to maintain its health,
Right.
right? And so what I felt was a lot of disconnect. We were already trying to work through the energy with him and Cleo, and then I didn't feel connected to my husband.
Right.
And so almost kind of felt like a third wheel in our house. And so I didn't really know what to do with that energy, because when you express something like that, the first thing somebody may say is that, oh, you're being selfish. This
Right.
is a child.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, it actually might be a little selfish,
But
but
it's here.
it's also acknowledging
Yeah.
that I still want to maintain a healthy relationship with my husband. And so
And what were
yeah,
some of the specifics of the things that I wasn't doing that you was used to me doing that caused some of the disconnect?
yeah. So it was more so of very small things like, acknowledgement, smacking my butt when I walk past,
When Marty
rubbing,
not looking, of
yeah,
course.
rubbing my arm, and not. And so the thing is, when his son is present, he's not always around us.
Right.
So there's still moments
Opportunities.
where we could have intimacy, but those moments were not present. And I was picking up on the fact that those moments weren't present. And just the small things like, rubbing my arm,
Kiss
or
on the neck.
yeah, kiss
Yeah.
on the neck, or, just making sure to reconnect with me so our energy is okay, as you are also 1000% present for your son. So every relationship in the house is still maintaining its health. And so what I found was it was kind of uncomfortable to be in the house. And so I would kind of just like find things to go do. I would just, leave the house and maybe go stay out at Target or World Market a little bit longer, because coming in the house, the only relationship that it felt like I had was the relationship with Cleo, and then the relationship with your son. And then our relationship was just totally, it felt disconnected to me. Do you want to chime in to any
Yeah.
of that first?
So, and even with the last, I start from the back end and work my way towards the front of what you said. But the decision to go out to spend more time out, I'm thinking you're just doing your thing. It also took away from some of the time that we would have been able to engage in some of those ways. But when you did bring it up, like this is throughout the course of a 24-hour period. And like she said in the last episode, we feel each other's energy. It's heavy. Even when it's like in a good way, she could be halfway across the country and I could feel whatever she's feeling. So throughout the course of the day, I'm asking her like, "Yo, you okay? You okay?" And I guess I know she was still processing. She wasn't ready to tell me yet, but that kind of left me in the dark to a certain degree, and it didn't allow me to see the blind spot that she will highlight later about the quote unquote daddy trance. So that coupled with me not knowing, coupled with her going out, it left less and less opportunities for me to recognize possibly for myself before she even had to tell me like, all right, maybe daddy trance wasn't the word I would have used for it, but maybe it would have hit me like, all right, I got to be a little bit more attentive to Candace. And part of it was, this is my first time being away from my son more than a few days, moving out here at this point like 4 months ago. And initially my son was supposed to be moving to Atlanta. At the last minute, that didn't happen. It still happened in divine accordance. Everything does. But I had to make some shifts. I had to make some changes. Atlanta would have been a 10, 11-hour drive, which is way more accessible than Houston to Jersey. I'm gonna make it happen. But this was my first time being able to be around my son after my longest period of being without him. Like I went through a lot of angst as a father, knowing I'm still supposed to be here. You asked me mad times, like, you sure you still moving here? You sure this is what I'm like? I know I'm supposed to be here. I just gotta get through this brunt of this level of detachment from my son. So having done all of that, I remember the last day, it's on my Instagram page, me sitting in the car, taking him to school that last day before I took the flight here, just breaking down. I had broke down multiple times. There was a lot of energy that got moved around. So that coupled with it's the holidays, I haven't been able to spend Christmas with my son in 2 years, and my family was coming here. My family hasn't spent a holiday together in a very long time. So there's a lot of excitement for just to get my son here, get him prepared for the moment that we about to have on Christmas. So it's almost like not feeling like I needed to catch up, but I'm already extremely invested into my son when I'm with him. I don't just put him in front of a TV. When it's me and my son, like I'm really sitting there with him. That put me, like you said, in the daddy trance to the degree where I didn't even see the things I normally naturally do. I wasn't doing because I was so, all right, did he pee? Did he poop? Did I cook? What am I going to cook for him for the rest of the day? What school we doing? What's going to be his activity? Where am I going to take him? Like full investment. Having a child is a whirlwind, especially at 4 years old, especially when you got a son as bright as my son Samadi. Shout out to Samadi whenever you do see this when you're a grown man, right? So all of that kind of set the precedent for what you was experiencing alone until you was able to bring it up that night. And by the time we got to the bedroom, I had put my son down. The whole day I felt the disconnect. Matter of fact, I think at a certain point we was about to go somewhere, and I think I said like I feel like you feel distant. You feel distant,
I
and
said that.
you said that.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we were about to go somewhere and I got in the car and
yeah. You said I feel distant.
I
Yeah,
said, I don't remember the verbiage, but it was to convey that I don't feel like we're connected. And so that whole time, one thing about me, if I feel it, I can't hide it.
yeah.
If I feel a way towards a person, it's going to show on my face and you going to feel it on my energy.
She gonna get them big eyes.
And it ain't nothing to talk about. Ain't nothing funny.
All right.
And you can make all the jokes in the world, and
Right.
I'm gonna look at you because this is all I got right now. And in the process, I am in internal conflict because I don't want to be selfish, and also I'm not asking for a lot.
Right.
So I'm not asking for you to take time away from your son.
Right.
I'm just asking for small bits of acknowledgement, a rub on my arm or, just a kiss on the cheek in passing.
Right.
So nothing that is going to require time taken away from your son, because obviously I'm very clear on all the things that you have had to sacrifice to be here. And I've even told you many times when emotions get heavy, when you miss your son, if you ever feel like you have to move back to New Jersey so you can continue to have that relationship, I fully support that. And so my support in your relationship with your son has always been 1000% present, and also advocating for myself and our relationship and acknowledging what I need in those moments
Right.
to also feel a part of the dynamic. Because as he's here in Houston, he was connecting with you, but he was also connecting with me for the first time as well. And so for that full to this degree. And so for that, and our new home.
Right.
So for that full relationship and the connection and the energy to come full circle, he needs to be able to experience me at my best, how I feel my best with my husband, his dad, and with him and in our environment. And so if I'm not receiving, what I would normally receive from my husband and it's affecting me, it's also affecting my interaction with him and his interaction with me. And so, it took me a while to be able to express that. And I can't get into the details of the rest of the story because I don't remember all the details.
Well, one part though, like when we was in the car about to go somewhere, of course, Marty is with us. And I had already felt like when you said that I feel distant from you, I had already felt like you felt distant from me and I didn't know what was going on yet. So when you said it to me, and I always talk about, I do couples therapy, I always talk about the spark. I give a lot of my clients homework called spark plug repair. It's a meditative process. But just understanding the spark is that, everything is